Okay, I'd like to call to order this meeting of the Accommodations Tax Advisory Committee, today, Tuesday, March 7th, 2023, and acknowledge that the press and the public have been duly notified of the meeting in accordance with the Freedom of Information Act. First item on the agenda is the approval of previous meetings minutes from February 14th. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Okay. Second?
Second.
Discussion? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, the minutes passes. Next item, we have, Debbie's not here.
She is coming. If you all don't mind going through, and we can have the CVB presentation first, and then
Sure.
gives her a little bit
Okay.
more time to get down here.
I don't need a motion to move the agenda, do I? No. Okay. Next item would be a presentation from Catherine Doherty of CVB to give us an idea of what's been going on the past couple of months.
How are y'all? Good to see y'all. I think I was last out here in January, and at that time we had discussed the VRBO campaign that was running, and here are the dates that it ran. So it actually ran through the beginning of February. And then just kind of a reminder, we looked at this last time of one of the main reasons that we went forward with doing a campaign with them was their psychographics and who their customer actually is. So I'm excited to share with y'all the results. So I know these are a little bit pixelated. We send the images and the copy to VRBO, and then they actually create the ad units. So I just have screenshots, but these are the ones that were produced and that ran. And then let's look at the results. So the first thing that's pretty noticeable is the majority of, and these are people that actually booked units on Isle of Palms within that time frame. So December, the first week of February. So the majority were multi-adults. So either girlfriend getaways, guys golf trips, or couples trips. And then family was just under that. And then you can also see the listing type that were booked. And so a majority of those were house, followed by condo and villa. So does everybody clear on that before I go to the next one?
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Okay, so that's data on all of the properties that were booked over that period of time. Is there a correlation between people who clicked through the Isle of Palms ad and booked, or is it just everybody who booked?
No, these are the correlation. Thank you for asking that. Are people that saw our ad on VRBO and booked within a 30-day time period of seeing that ad served. And they track that by their IP address. So they know these folks saw the ad.
Okay.
May I ask a question? Is this, do you track
Rebecca?
outside Wild Dunes, or is this all Wild Dunes?
No, this is anyone that booked Isle of Palms for those dates that saw our ad on VRBO.
But you don't have how much were the percentages inside Wild Dunes as opposed to outside Wild Dunes?
I do not, but that is something we can ask them for future campaigns.
Well, that would be.
Yeah.
That would be good, thank you.
I'm happy to do that. That's a great suggestion. The booking window, which is always important to us because that determines when we're going to serve our ads, because I know of interest to y'all is the off season and not the summer months. They told me when we reviewed this data, since COVID, this is the largest percentage they've seen of a 90-day booking window for units that were booked. So the booking window is going out to longer. You know, since COVID, we've really been seeing 3 to 5 days out that people are making those vacation decisions. And this shows they're going back to a longer lead time and making those decisions much farther in advance. And that's a good thing. That helps us prepare. So I love that. And then you can see the length of stay. So the longest length of stay was 3 to 5 nights, followed by 6 to 9 days. And I think that's encouraging as well. Any questions on those? their team is really responsive. So if I don't know the answer to something, just like your question, I have no problem going back and asking them, and they get back to me very quickly. Okay, so here are the actual booking results for those time period. Overall, we booked almost $3 million in revenue. That's amazing. On the average daily rate, so the average, what people were spending per night was $2,300. The low end of that scale was $340. The high end was almost $4,000 a night. That's amazing. I think that, right, Desiree and I went through the numbers last week, and she was like, what? Yes. So, and I think that that's the type of visitor y'all want to see here, those high net worth spenders, right? So we're getting there. And then the total room nights booked was almost 3,000. So I think the campaign performed amazingly well. I hope that y'all feel that way. I definitely think it is something that we should do again. So what they are telling me is moving forward that we can specifically not only just target people interested in beaches, interested in South Carolina, those things that we already put down as search terms, we can use the months of visitation. So we can say, please only serve the Isle of Palm ads to people searching October to March. So that way we're not pushing more to the summer. We're really focusing on the off season. So I think that's something of interest to y'all, the off season pushing, yes?
Yeah,
Could
Okay.
you, I have a question if I may, Chair.
sure.
Could you distinguish the intensity of the ad by season so that, I mean, and I don't know, do we still want to have some advertising for the summer?
Absolutely, yes. We could
And-
tell them a percentage.
Okay.
So if y'all want to say, let's put 25% in June through August and put the rest of the 75% into the off season, that should not be a problem at all.
Yeah, it would seem like a good idea to keep a presence 12 months a year and then do more higher end kind of advertising when we want visitors for the off season.
I agree. There's nothing wrong with maintaining presence of mind all year round.
And I think keeping in mind you said the lead time was 90 days. So that means we'll be running heavy ad exposure in the summer for the fall
Yes.
and winter time.
Yes. So we did well 61 to 90 days out, but that 90%.
Yeah.
So yes.
Is that, did I read that wrong? Is that 90% or 90 days?
I'm sorry, 90 days.
90
I
days
said
out.
percent.
Yeah, that's-
Yes, so that means if you want to push for October, you need to be serving your ad up in June, July. But you can go to those people that are just searching certain dates, which I didn't know was an option through VRBO.
My experience is that families get together at Thanksgiving and Christmas holidays, and they talk about going on vacation. And then, because I get a blast of inquiries between the first of the year and the next month or so,
Right.
because that's what happens. And I think, primarily they're for the summer, and so that might be part of why you see such a big percentage.
I agree. It's kind of like engagement season. People seem to get engaged around major holidays so they can show off and tell all their family. It's a little bit similar pattern. So a couple of things. Yes, Doug.
I've got a question.
Sure.
Appreciate you being here. Glad you're giving us this information. Looks like we're going forward. I'm trying to put this in perspective. What did this campaign cost us?
This 6-week period was 20,000, and I've asked them to spend that we'd like to spend another 25,000 starting now. And then they are coming back to me with a full campaign for next fiscal year, just on Isle of Palms.
and how
Fiscal
many
24?
and how many days during this period? How many days were booked total?
Oh, the room nights
I saw that
was 2,900.
2,900. Okay.
So, So the 20,000 was spent back in December, January, and
First week of
and
February.
when do you plan on, the 25,000 that you just mentioned, when is that targeted to be?
We wanted to start this week. And so if y'all want, and I was waiting to get to y'all here to tell me what seasonality y'all wanted to push for the remainder of this fiscal year. Do you want to keep pushing some of this summer? Or do you want to do an allocation 25, 75%, 25% this summer, 75% off season? And then we'll kick back up again in July for the new year.
Going back to this, it looks like we had 2.9 or 2,900 bookings, firm bookings. Revenue was generated, it looks like it's about almost $1,000. Yeah, I see your low and the high, about $1,000 average for each unit that's booked.
Yes,
And the revenue is 2.7,
correct.
and we paid 20,000 for the ad, and that generated for the Isle of Palms, if I'm doing my math, 2%, $5,400.
2%, you're just referring to state accommodations tax.
Yeah,
We
right.
also collect municipal
I'm
accommodations
talking
tax.
about ATAX. It generates
Well, you have local ATAX and
$5,400
state
in
ATAX.
Well, it would be 2% for
2%.
state ATAX on all accommodations, 1% for muni ATAX, another percent for beach preservation fee, which is all taxes levied on accommodations on the
Right, well,
island.
Thanks. So how much bang for a buck did we get?
We got huge bang for our buck.
I mean,
We don't interpret it by the tax money we collected. We interpret it by the money that the businesses have taken in and the number of people have been drawn to Isle of Palms, not the
Well,
pennies on the dollar that ATAX is.
that's a good point, but I was trying to understand the economic benefit.
That's
Well,
self-evident.
I think the revenue is to your homeowners
Right.
out here.
Right.
But
But I mean, if this is not something y'all want to go forward with,
I wasn't complaining. What I was trying to do is figure out, that's just, with all respect, that's only one part of it. The major part, I understand how much income is being generated. I was wondering about the tax that was generated.
I mean, I'm sure that's something Desiree and I can
Yeah.
put our heads to. And
yeah, we would apply
Okay.
the total percentage of tax that's added to any accommodations. It would be difficult to try to gauge the impact on hospitality. You know, these people that are coming
Sure.
and staying here, they're spending money in our
Sure.
restaurants and our shops. That would be a bit harder to create assumptions for.
I was starting with, we spent $20,000. It generated $2.7 million of revenue, to make Barbara's point, which I understood. I was just, then we've got the ATAX that it generated with $5,400. You've got hospitality taxes, and didn't you mention beach preservation and use of the grocery store and
State sales
Things-
tax,
sales tax and on and on?
the county tax that we get a portion of as well would be added.
I get it. So please, I wasn't at all being critical.
okay,
was
good.
trying to
I
put
was
it
like,
all-
oh God, I thought this was really good.
No, I was trying to put it all together, that we spent $20,000, and these are, the small things were the ATAX money and hospitality, and
Sure,
2.7 for the people that have the units.
correct.
On the Isle of Palms, short-term rentals. Got it.
Catherine, can I ask another question?
Sure.
Okay, so 2,900 room nights booked, and then the revenue of 2.7 million, that, according to the way I figured, that comes out to like $931 per room night. If you take the 2,900 and divide it into the 2.7 million, where does the 2,387 coming from?
So they listed I'm sorry, thank you for asking that. I should have explained it. So they listed the top 20 performers, what units,
Properties?
yes. And so I took the low and the high. But yes, I
Okay,
should have
so
said,
the 2,387
is
is
based on the
average
top
daily
20.
rate of the top 20
Yes, thank you for
properties.
asking that.
Okay, all right, that makes more sense.
okay.
And to put a finer point on this is very, very good for us. What it appears is this is, rather than being, say, hotel rooms, which would, may be in the 340 range, it indicates more houses, and that would in turn reflect more positively for the people that own houses, I don't want to use the majority, but outside the gate.
Sure.
Throughout the whole island.
Right, which I feel like was one
Yeah.
of the things y'all tasked us with.
Yeah.
So I hope you feel like this is a step in the right direction for being inclusive to those other folks outside the gate.
Sounds great.
Good, good.
Okay.
Well,
Yeah.
there's a lot of
Getting-
rental property inside the gates as well.
Right.
Sure.
Yeah, it's both, but if
Again-
it's houses, it's more houses out here, outside the gate than there are inside.
Getting back to your question, the $25,000 you're planning to spend between today and June 30th. Are you asking us for something in regards to that?
Yes, what time period would you like to be the focus of the bookings?
Well, isn't that something we should probably pull in the marketing? Our new,
I-
our
you
new
know,
marketing.
I think you still want the last minute bookings if you
Sure.
can get them, but really the impetus is the off season time, which we get more benefit from.
I think 25-75 is a nice split, but that's
25
just,
for the current
Mhm.
quarter,
yes.
and so, yeah, I mean,
I think that would be good, and that way you can gauge what the results would be for the summer if you see any changes here, season over season.
yeah, and as
Um,
long as we understand that, we could look at the numbers or the data relative to the spend, I guess.
Yes. I think because they're owned by Expedia and they're such a large company, having access to this data is really nice. So when we have questions like, can we look at in and out of the gates or other things like that, they have the human power and the knowledge to respond to our request.
Okay.
So, good. So, a couple of things also going forward, because we saw more multi-adult rentals, and I mocked these up, they did not mock these up. Do y'all want to see more family images in the ads, or are you happy with that multi-adult family mix? It was about 55% to 42%, and then the rest were others.
Can we do both? Or
We can do both, yes.
I think if it was pretty much split down the middle, we probably should be running.
Okay, so that was just one of my suggestions based on what we learned. So more family images, serve the ads for October through March, and then just all the things we were just talking about, the booking window and the metrics that we got. So, good.
One other question.
Sure.
The slide said room nights, but that's really, it's not room nights as much as it is property nights. Is that right? Like if you have a 4-bedroom, it's not, you're not figuring on 2.9 meaning however many
Per property,
per
yes.
property. Okay.
Yes, correct. Not all the bedrooms accounted for in every single
As opposed
property.
to a hotel,
Correct.
They're gonna count every room.
Yes, so property nights booked. How about that?
Yeah.
Okay. Great. Well, I look forward to coming back to y'all after the next round. And then just a couple of social media metrics, paid and organic, social, specific to Isle of Palms since I last saw you all. Woo, wait. On our Isle of Palms specific campaign, we were up 40, and this is Facebook and Instagram. So when you purchase ads through their new parent company, Meta, you get them distributed on both platforms. So we were up almost 48% over the previous 58 days and up 95%. So one is the top number is to the Isle of Palms page on explorecharleston.com. So we have specific Isle of Palms ads going to that page. And then the second one are specific Isle of Palms ads going to charlestonarea.beaches.com Isle of Palms page. So these are both specific to Isle of Palms. The ads and the landing page where the consumer ends. All right, I think I'm just pointing at the wrong place. And then in our video that y'all had seen previously, We have organic metrics from our social media team. So lots of shares, comments, all the things you want. And then TikTok, our paid campaign, since it started, is almost 3 million views. So people are definitely enjoying the video and sharing it with all their friends and family. Then we had also discussed the photography project that we were doing for hotels out here. So these are things we take on every 6 to 7 years. We go through our list of properties and we figure out who has had a renovation or who we don't have current photography of. We pay for this project, and then not only do we use the photography, we give it all back to the property as well. So it's a nice way to give them a benefit because photography is really expensive. I mean, average is about $300 an image. Not everyone has that. I think you could certainly speak to not always top of mind when you're trying to run the business, and we like to lift that burden for our hotels. So this is the Palms, so they have all new photography. Sweetgrass Inn, we didn't have anything of them, and they're new. And then Seaside Inn, so great stuff that we can use on our own sites and our own campaigns, and they can use as well. And these are there are no rights to these or sunset clauses. Once we give them over to the property, they can use them as long as they want in any way that they want. So not rights managed. And lastly, 2 of our new publications have come out since I saw y'all. First is the new visitor guide with an Isle of Palms specific full page ad and then editorial on Isle of Palms. So we distribute about 600,000 of these a year. And then our destination planning guide, which is specific to meeting planners, and y'all have a full page of edit as well. So.
I've got another question.
Sure.
All right.
Trustler,
I was just trying to get my mind completely
Could you?
around this.
Right, on the microphone, yeah. Because
I always thought I had a sawmill whisper, but I'll bring this closer. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. It's
All
more
right.
for the people at home.
I was trying to look at this from just another perspective so I could fully understand and close the circle. You gave us the figures on what we got from VRBO. Very much appreciated the presentation. Is that what we got as a result of the expenditure of the $20,000, or is that just VRBO's experience? If that's not clear, how would we compare these numbers to what was done
Sure.
without spending the money?
Those-
It's like last year's.
Well, we didn't have a VRBO campaign at all. So those bookings are tracked by their IP address. So their at-home or phone web address that they're searching on, and those are folks that were served that ad. So the people that booked had seen the Isle of Palms ad.
Okay, so that sort of closes the circle. They looked at they looked at the VRBO ad that you and
Yes.
VRBO had perfected, and these are
The bookings that
These are
resulted
things we-
within 30 days.
we wouldn't have gotten except for this. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
It's very Big Brother. It's a little scary, but then it's benefiting when you're on the marketing
Sure.
side, right?
Sure.
Consumer might be scared, but for us, it lets us know that those folks booked based on having been served the ad.
Well, so it looks like you were able to generate $2.7 million of extra revenue for the Isle of Palms by the expenditure of $20,000. And then there are the things that Desiree mentioned, like, hospitality and on and on.
Yes.
Okay, got it.
So
Thanks.
Thank you very much, Catherine.
thank y'all. I'm happy to entertain any questions anytime. Thank y'all.
Okay, we'll jump back on the agenda to financial statements, and that discussion will be led by Debbie Suggs.
Good morning. I'm going to try to go through the financial statements pretty quick so we have plenty of time for the budget. And not much has happened since we met last time. These are the January financial statements. First page is the balance sheet. You can see that the cash position of the state ATAX fund is strong. Sorry. $4 million in cash. Turning the page to revenues, we've received the first 2 quarters of payments from the state treasurer's office. We'll look at the trends there in a minute. Moving on to expenditures, we had normal operating expenditures associated with the public restrooms that are open all winter long. Trash pickup, also a 12-month effort. 4,500 linear feet of sidewalk in Front Beach was replaced, the curb. I think we've talked about all this. The fireworks we've talked about before, the playground equipment we've spoken about before. The replacement of the Christmas tree has already been discussed. I'm not sure about a portable radar sign that the police department received. That was according to budget expenditures, and a police patrol SUV was purchased, as well as a low-speed vehicle for the police department, a jet ski and trailer for the fire department, and a pickup truck for the public works department. No additional spending on sponsorships over the 3 that we had reported on previously for the chamber, the surf club, and the VFW. And then this final page is a history of the payments received from the state. And I'm showing you here in the orange section the calculation we used to get to the budget number. And the way we do this is we take the last 4 quarters actually received and multiply by 90%. That's just a nod to being conservative. You know, we don't have a crystal ball. Keeps us from overshooting the revenue budget. And this approach has served us well in the past. So we do this for all tourism funds throughout the city. We've done it this way for several years. So that's how we get to the budget, which would flow right into the large pages. And I know these are a little bit of a monster, but the goal here is to provide some historical data as well as some forecast data on a very granular level. So
Do you all, I know you all have under new business, the second item, the discussion of the FY24 state ATAX budget as it's drafted. This is the first very rough draft, which is ongoing normal operation and expenditures. Do you want to go through that now or follow the order in your agenda and entertain the discussion of the applications that you received and heard from last month?
Let's go through it now. That gives Debbie a chance if she
Okay.
wants to do something else.
thank you very much. I appreciate that. Okay, so if you're looking at this sheet, the FY24 budget is the lighter green column. So all the other numbers on here are pretty much for information only, but we're going to key in on FY24 budget. So pulling over from the legal size page that we just talked about, you can see the accommodations related and promotion revenue streams. Knowing that further down in the budget, the promotion line will go back out to the CVB, less a little bit that we're going to save to pay Chandra. We'll go over that more in a minute. Interest income of $60,000, which if you look historically is a very nice improvement. Moving on down into the general government section. Not much change there, a little increase on water and sewer. And that, if you turn the page, you'll see the notes on the second page. That $1,000 is for irrigation at the Breach Inlet sign. And the $8,000 of non-capital tools and equipment is a provision for the city to be able to add, maintain, or replace benches at the Carmen R. Bunch Park, which is by the grocery store, Leola Hanbury Park, which is right here by City Hall, and also includes a provision for the addition or maintenance of the city's beach wheelchairs that we make available to the public free of charge. $95,000 on line 20 is for programs and sponsorships.
What's an example of that?
So that is the $50,000 provision
50.
that you all have the ability to recommend funding for specific events or initiatives. So I want to spend some time talking about this line item now, because last year we decided to change the schedule in how you consider applications and make recommendations for funding. I know that for FY24, we just completed that process and heard from those applicants last month. We only received 2 applications for a total of $10,000 between the two. We kept the $50,000 provision there to give you all the flexibility to, because it was the first year, whether to consider additional applications throughout the year or have a placeholder for this committee to develop events or a specific initiative that's not detailed at this time, but throughout the year, if something comes up through y'all's conversation that fit within the tourism-related expenditure definition in state law, that you would have some placeholder to allocate that for. So you tell us if we want to just go back to just budgeting for those applications that were received and heard, and you all recommend. We can take that money down from 50 to 10, which is what, if you all want to recommend both, which I think you're going to be talking about it later on, or you want to keep it at 50 and then just give you flexibility throughout the year to do that.
My preference personally would be to keep it at 50.
Okay.
And as things, if other applications come through, even though, we could consider it, but it also gives us some flexibility to do special projects if we can identify some that makes sense.
And I think you've already, at a previous meeting, sort of tasked the committee to think through what some of those projects could be. So that could be an ongoing process for this committee, and this would again give you $40,000 to do a special event or a special initiative. So we've worked. That's how we were building the first draft of the budget. We're keeping the $50,000, and that line item also includes $45,000 for fireworks. We're assuming we're having fireworks this year. That cost has increased per the contractor. It hadn't increased for many years. So that's why there's a $10,000 increase there in that line item.
Desiree, is this what your recommendation would be? We want to listen, carefully consider what you've said. Is it your recommendation that we do it this way?
No, I'm asking you all what you all would like to do.
Okay.
If you want to keep the $50,000, we can certainly keep it in the budget. We drafted the budget just as it was for FY23. I'm asking direction from the committee.
Oh, I was trying to see what you thought was best for us.
I would defer on the
just defer
Are
committee.
we
That's
discussing
okay.
this now, or is
Yeah,
that?
I think we are.
All right.
I would say keep it in the budget.
Yeah, same
Do we
here.
need to make a motion for that?
No.
No?
No, just direction.
Barb, you can say.
No, I agree.
All right.
Okay, Debbie.
Just moving on, we have a $1,000 miscellaneous line item in there just for things that might come up. Tourism promotion expense, that's line 23, $976,800. And then if you flip over to the note, that amount is made up of the state mandated 30% transfer of $982,000 based on our budget for revenues, less $21,000 for the city's new public relations and tourism coordinator. You'll see that we kept the same general language here. related to one or more DMOs.
Right.
And that line also includes $15,000 for the T-shirt program that we maintain here at City Hall. So on the city's website, there's a form someone can fill out and come up and get a T-shirt.
I noticed, I think in the expenses thing, we've only spent like $20 this year, is that right?
Well, we keep an inventory, and during COVID, there weren't a whole lot of people coming up. So I think we don't buy the T-shirts unless we are low. And so we might have, and we buy them all at one time for the year. So it could be just a timing issue.
Okay.
Moving on to police, there's $11,000 in non-capital tools and equipment. That's the $7,500 for body armor. That's a recurring expense that's funded with state ATAX funds. And a second portable radar sign for $3,500. That's just for traffic control. And then in capital outlay, there's one pickup truck with a radio for the new code enforcement officer that the city has included in the FY24 budget.
So that is a new addition. Council voted last week to add a second code enforcement officer to the police department to have a more emphasized focus on short-term rental and livability and addressing those complaints. So that code enforcement officer will require a vehicle to be on and around the island, and we're budgeting that expenditure under state ATAX.
All right, moving on to the fire department. There's the principal and interest payment on the 10-year lease for the 75-foot ladder truck. I use the term lease, but there's no buyout provision at the end. The city holds the title. It's a financing mechanism that's referred to as a municipal lease, but it doesn't act or behave as a consumer-level car lease. There's no buyout at the end. We own the equipment. And then in capital outlay for the fire department, there is a provision for the purchase of 2 mobile radios, but those will only, that money will only be spent if the current radios cannot be transferred. They're getting older, and if they're operable and they can make the switch, they will, but they wanted a provision just in case. Going down to Public Works, there's $7,500 there. That's the annual provision for beach trash cans. And then in FY24 under capital outlay, there's $200,000 for the addition of a Caterpillar trash loader. That's the device that picks up the yard debris and deposits it in the flatbed trucks. The current one will be maintained as a backup. Moving on to the next page, we're in recreation now. There's $105,000 there for capital outlay, including $20,000 for playground equipment and/or scoreboards as needed, replacement of the dog park fence and equipment for $30,000, and 1/3 of the cost to construct an outdoor fitness court. And then under special activities in the rec department, we have the connector run for $7,500, the Easter egg hunt for $4,500, and the summer music event that they have at the rec for $4,500. Next, we have the front beach and front beach restrooms. These utilities, insurance, cleaning, professional services all relate to the front beach restroom. Line 69, contracted services, includes the cleaning of the restroom and an $85,000 year-round contract on the trash disposal on the street and on the beach. The $70,000 worth of capital outlay in that department, again, relates to the city's effort to every year replace certain amounts of the sidewalk on Ocean Boulevard. Then the last item for, and it's a big one, for FY '24 would be the transfers out from this fund. And that's detailed on the last page, bottom, row 83. So there's 21,000 for the new Public Relations and Tourism Coordinator, 2 firefighters, 1 police officer, 100% of all the BSOs, and the new marina parking attendant, $20,000 worth of police OT overtime for the summer, and the front beach restroom attendant. All of those are city employees that we pay through the general fund. This is just a transfer of state ATAX money into the general fund to cover them. And then also, there's 75% of the annual debt service on the marina dock bond, a $50,000 provision for marina maintenance, and the beach run sponsorship of $3,000. Also included in FY '24 transfers to the marina for 50% of the improvements to the T-dock on the Intercoastal Waterway, that's $200,000. Marina green space, $50,000. And the construction of a new public dock, $250,000. So all those are FY '24 projects, a piece of which we're proposing to be funded with state ATAX money.
Now, all of those projects, will they have to be approved by city council as they are proposed over the course of the year?
So the public dock project has already been approved. We're in the permitting process for that. Council also approved last year the provision to improve the T-dock, which is the remaining piece that was not replaced as part of last year's project. They also, this would be a rebudget expenditure. They approved it last year. So, yeah, they would have to, I mean, council's already approved all these projects because
Okay,
they're.
all of these have already been approved by city council and Ways and Means and city council?
So they're recurring with the additional, in terms of personnel, the new item is this new public relations position. Council approved that
Right.
last year. The marina parking attendant, that's something new in this year. Council already approved that last year. We're funding a piece of it through state ATAX. FY '24 would have to be reapproved as part of the budget process. The front beach attendant, that's part of our ongoing operations of, managing the front beach restrooms. That's sort of normal operations there. Nothing new. The debt service, those bonds were approved by council at the time that they were issued. I already talked about the T-dock, the green space, that was something that was included last year. We could not do it this year, so we're rebudgeting that for FY '24. As well as the public dock. Those improvements are planned for later this year, so we have to rebudget them again for FY '24. But most of these projects are sort of in the planning process. They've been approved and contracts have been executed, and we're in the design or permitting process now.
Okay.
We are proposing, again, going back to the state law definition of what we can use these monies for, tourism-related expenditures. Everything that you have in this draft budget are activities that are heavily impacted by tourism activity on the island. That's how we're making the justification to fund certain projects, and most of them are being funded by a combination, not just state ATAX. It'll be a third of state ATAX, a third of municipal accommodations, and a third of hospitality, or 1/3 could be coming from the general fund, capital projects fund. So it's just, we're very aware that a lot of our activity, our operations are impacted by tourism, but they are also enjoyed by our residents. So we create a funding distribution
Right,
that supports
allocation,
that,
so to
and
speak.
an allocation that supports that.
Okay.
Are there any specific initiatives, changes, additions that you all would like to see. I know we're keeping that $50,000 provision to allow you flexibility to do that throughout the year, but this is us presenting you all a draft of the budget based on our normal operations and kind of how we've been funding things for many years. If you all have any questions or suggestions or events, ideas that you all would like for us to consider and bring back with more information, this would be not the only time, but the first time we're talking about the budget. Obviously, we'll go through in the next couple months as we refine it, but happy to hear any feedback or thoughts about it.
Would you like us to just contact you directly, or should we do it in another meeting or by email? What's your preference?
I think it would need to be discussed by the committee and embraced by the entire group before we move forward with putting something on a budget.
Okay.
On the operating transfers out, the last line, is there a plan in place for dredging, excuse me, of the marina? And is that just kind of put it out there so it's in front of everybody?
Mm-hmm.
So yes, this is something we added last year, knowing that we will need to do some dredging at the marina very, very soon. But since then, we've received a $1.5 million grant from the state budget. Through the help of our lobbyists in Columbia, we have received a state budget allocation of 1.5 for dredging. So we don't need to budget any additional monies for FY25 because we anticipate it'll be fully funded by that allocation.
So I will take that out.
Okay.
Desiree, I had a question. We've heard about it's a very small item, I think, in the overall context of things, but about a mural that's being proposed for the Public Works building, or it would seem ATAX money could be used for that, or other city money. What's the status of that, and then what source can be used?
State ATAX funds could be used. I think the $50,000 provision would give you all the flexibility to do that and allocate money for that. When council discussed it, we thought it would be a good idea for the IOP Chamber of Commerce to take that on as a project. I know they've been working on it. Obviously, they're kind of new and they're getting their ducks in a row. But I know that they have assigned one of their members to, look at different artists and kind of different options and maybe put a request for proposals out there to garner examples of what the mural could look like. But we don't have an estimate. We don't know how much it would cost. We kind of put that on the hands of the chamber for them to coordinate it all.
Would we be able to use some of these funds, for example, to decorate the entrance? People call the marina the gym of the island, for landscaping or for decorations in the front, not specific to any business there, but would we be able to use the money for landscaping, for example? Like we use it, we have it at Breach Inlet.
Yeah, we have a landscaping contract and a landscaping budget. Landscaping. Why does that? It sounds weird when I say it. A landscaping budget through Muni ATAX, hospitality tax, so that it could be funded through that initiative.
And there's $50,000 for green space already in here.
Good.
But that's for the green space along the public dock. That's a portion of that. But yeah, we have funds in the budget to enhance public property.
Okay. All right.
Does this include plantings, azaleas, oleanders? Does this include the landscaping so that can we enhance our landscaping?
We have a $173,000 budgeted through hospitality tax for landscaping.
So how do we go about doing that? Do we get with the landscaper themselves and try to put something together to present to council?
Is there a
I think
specific?
we're talking about overall beautification of Isle of Palms.
Okay.
The entrances of Isle of Palms, all points. That was just a quick discussion that we've been.
Okay.
How can we improve?
Well, what we can do, let me think about this.
Okay.
We're not funding any any beautification through the state accommodations tax. It's a different contract that we have codified in a different form. I think if you all have any specific recommendations, you can share them with me. Our facilities supervisor from Public Works works directly with the landscaper, and I know they've been focusing on beautifying Front Beach, and y'all may have seen some new plantings down the connector that we just recently did along the both ends of the end of the connector. If there's any others, there's a list of other areas that we're already planning on enhancing and awaiting for specific proposals from the landscaping contract. But if you all have a specific area, remember it has to be publicly owned. There has to be some irrigation available so that it could be maintained and sustained. But certainly happy to hear any specific recommendations that we can take back to our landscaper and contract and have them draw up a plan for us to consider.
Is there any money that we could appropriate to updating our signs? The signs at the Breach Inlet and as you come in from the Isle of Palms connector are kind of tired looking, very, to me, 1960-ish. Is there a way to make those more attractive?
We can put something in the budget that would allow us to do that. We tried, I will tell you this, we tried years ago, and there is an emotional connection with those signs.
Okay.
And so we have to tread carefully because there are people that like the signs to stay, like they're from the 1940s. So I think we can certainly look at alternatives and see what we could do. But we can allocate some money in this budget towards that initiative.
Thank you.
Do you need us to vote on this?
Not yet. No, we just informational, kind of giving you all, an idea of what we're drafting, and again, giving you all an opportunity to provide feedback if there's anything like we've talked about that you want to see. We can certainly include it, and you all could see it in your next draft.
Any other?
Oh, I had a question for Desiree on this. I'm talking about beautification of the island and using the island's money for the benefit of our valued tourists and our residents. We sure do seem to have a lot of bent-over signs that I've and some safety violations. I've written several letters to DOT asking about that. But I mean, we've got just sign after sign after sign. I think they're DOT signs.
They are
with few
DOT signs.
exceptions.
They are DOT signs, but the maintenance essentially falls on us. I would be shocked if I see a DOT truck out here fixing crooked signs. There are requirements and standards for the placement of those signs. Unfortunately, they have to be able to break away quickly in the event that a car is, has an accident and whatnot. We cannot mount them on concrete on the floor, which is what eventually would fix that. We just can't do that per DOT standard. So it is an ongoing maintenance headache to going around the island and fixing signs, but any quick, any wind that we get will probably move them and have them leaning again. So it's just an ongoing thing. We're very few options because we are not able to have them mounted or secured with concrete at the bottom.
I appreciate it. I appreciate that. Wild Dunes doesn't seem to have the same problem. Kiowa doesn't seem to have the same problem. It's no criticism of city administration, but they seem to seriously violate MUTCD safety standards. And I don't know who could be encouraged to, the sign that right as you turn off the connector to the left, the first sign you see is over at about 45 degrees, and it's just seems unsightly. It wouldn't be an expensive fix to have them the way they're designed. Who would we go to if we wanted to make things look nicer, more presentable, and safer? Where would we go?
Well, you can start with me.
Okay.
I manage the operations of every department. That is something that we are doing. Our public works facilities and maintenance folks do that. Our BSOs are also responsible for doing that as they see. You'd be surprised the amount of calls I make every day when I'm driving on the island, identifying those signs. And we can look and see whether there's another option other than mounting them on concrete on the ground, which we're not required to do. We like following rules. I know that in other communities sometimes we get examples of why did they do that? When we ask for permission, we're told no. So that's how I operate my folks. But we can certainly look at what if there are any other options that would meet standards and how to install them.
I'll tell you, Scott Pierce and I, and then one of the police officers just did a tour of the city and discovered 240 MUTCD safety violations and bent over signs, and we reported it to DOT, and all we heard was crickets.
Mm-hmm.
So, just FYI.
Yeah. Thank
Appreciate your help. Thank you.
Sure.
Okay. Any other questions concerning the financial statements or the budget? Okay, then we can move on to the next item. Next item is discussion, new business, discussion and consideration of applications received for state ATAX funding. The first application we received was from the VFW for $5,000 to repair the beach access walkway that goes along the side of their building, between their building and the Windjammer. I'd like to open the discussion. Does anyone have any thoughts or comments to make concerning that? Any questions?
I would have the comment that this was an extension of the walkway. It was owned by the VFW, but it's been open for the public to have access to the beach between the VFW and the Windjammer. And it's been a valuable resource. It's been used by the public, by our residents, by our visitors and our tourists, and they're simply trying to improve this for the walkway to the beach. I think everybody probably has seen the improvements that have been made and the ones that are in progress. Seems
Okay.
to me to be a very worthwhile project and meets the criteria under our application process.
Do I have a motion for approval?
I so move.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, the next item is Make-A-Wish Foundation. We received a request from them for, it was $5,000, wasn't it?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I just, in the minutes, unless I'm missing it, it doesn't say 5,000, but that's my recollection anyway. Any thoughts or comments concerning that grant application?
Was she gonna come back and give us some information on how many rooms had been rented out thus far?
Yeah, but this is for,
Next year.
Oh, this is for
Next
next year. Gotcha. Sorry.
Because this is the first.
I think it would be
they're doing.
helpful to see what they experienced this year, but that hasn't happened yet either.
Yeah.
That's
Sounds like
right.
they're gonna be pretty successful.
Yeah, I think that she committed to bringing back some metrics after this year's event, which is their first one here, and I think that would give you all an idea of what the impact would be for their follow-up event next year.
Yeah.
For what it's worth, I thought it was a very worthwhile project going forward, but at this point in time, we don't have the data necessary to make a call on this, so I'd either move to defer or table the discussion. I'd move to defer, let them provide us with the information. And I thought they were very wise to get ahead of the program, to get ahead of it and give us information to start with. And they did a very good job. I'd like to see what their figures show, and then we could make a decision in the best interest of the taxpayers. So that's my
That's a good
motion.
idea. That's your motion? Okay.
There
there
needs to be a
second?
second.
A second?
Okay, any further discussion?
So just so that I'm clear, you're not making a decision now, you're deferring until later in the year when you get more information from them.
See, that doesn't, well, they're gonna have an event March of this month.
Correct.
Is it, and you're looking for data relative to the experience they have on that event?
I don't know.
I think so. What do you think, Desiree?
This is, y'all are
No,
appointed to
I
make these
like that.
recommendations.
The way our application is set up, typically grants are done retrospectively rather than projectively, just hoping. Well, that's the way it's set up. It's set up.
That's not how the VFW is set up. They're asking money to do the project in the future. They're not requesting for reimbursement. We had the Lovello event. It's been funded for many years, and it's always a forward-looking event.
Surf camp.
Surf Camp has been a forward-looking event.
Each of those have had a history of doing good deeds. I can use an example of Osceola. They came in, asked for $10,000, never done a program. They got the $10,000. We never heard from them again. There was no accounting, no nothing. In the case of Lovello, they've given accounting. VFW, they've given accounting. The Exchange Club, they've given, you know, the accounting of what they've done.
No, they haven't.
Who
For
had-
the Exchange Club, we haven't received any. The project's not yet completed.
they've established that they've given far more money than the benefit they've gotten from the city.
Which is irrelevant.
Okay, so they're gonna have an event this month, and I would think we would need to get some feedback from them on when they will be able to give us the data on this year's event in order for us to consider then your motion. So
Mr. Chair.
I think we need to ask them, and so we would ask them when they could get us that information, and if we need to tell them what we're looking for room nights and how many people and that kind of thing. So I don't know whether we can bring this up again in April, because I don't know whether we'll have the data or not.
I can certainly ask when and how much data they can provide regarding this year's event to the committee. If they are not recommended for remember, this is for the FY24, that means that they're not receiving any funding for their next year's event.
Yeah, but I fully expect that we should be able to deal with it before the new fiscal year starts.
Yeah, before the final draft
And that would
budget
be my
is adopted.
expectation.
Yeah,
Mr.
we can do
Chairman?
that.
Yes.
The only thing are you creating a precedent that no new event can ever get a funding because they won't have a history until they've done the event? Is that what we're saying? Yes? No? I mean, obviously, it's a reputable organization who's done a lot of planning, and I think their reputation precedes them for us giving them $5,000. But again, if we don't, anyone who comes in with a new event can't get the money. It's like a catch-22. They can't get the money because they have no experience. They can't get the experience because they can't get the money. Just a thought.
That's why when we started discussing revising the guidelines for the application, one of the suggestions I made was to include a requirement for a final report so that you can show at the end of the year, whether it's a new or an existing recurring event or initiative, how the funds were used. And that's the way we do that. You know, you have a report, and whether if you met the requirements of the application, then you can have the money. If not, then they would have to refund that to the city or be not be considered in the future. But I agree. I think it would be something to think about if you're creating an expectation that there's a degree of information that may not, an event or organization may not be able to provide for their first year's event.
Well, I think in this case, I expect that we're going to get information that will allow us to disposition the application before the new fiscal year starts. And as far as the application is concerned, I've committed that we will update the new application with, given in mind the existing application as well as the application that was redone for us to consider a few months ago. And we would have that new application over the court. We'd have it done, presented to this committee, approved or not approved, but have it settled before the calendar year is over, is what I had said. And I would think if you had that feedback mechanism in the application, which is what we're talking about, then that would solve that. I mean, the point would be, I guess, if somebody asked for money, we gave it to them in lieu of the event, and then once we got the feedback, if it wasn't a worthwhile venture, then they would not get that money again.
Sure.
I mean, I think that's my understanding of how we're intending to proceed.
I think
Okay.
that's a great idea, yeah.
Sure.
Okay, do
You
we
don't have to take any action on that application just yet until you receive
Yeah,
additional
and
information.
can you communicate with Make-A-Wish?
Yes,
And
yes, sir.
ask them whether they can get it to us in April or May. Either one, I would like to see it no later than May.
Sure.
Okay. All right, so we'll table that application. Is there a need for a vote on that motion?
No.
Well, he's gonna have to withdraw the motion.
Yeah, you can withdraw the motion and withdraw the second.
I'll withdraw it with that understanding.
Okay. All right,
Yes, withdraw. Thank you.
next item on the agenda we've already discussed is that's the discussion of the draft FY24 ATAX budget. Next item is miscellaneous date of next meeting. The date is not, the date is passed.
Yeah, that's right. You want to keep your first Tuesday of the month at 11? That's what we've been using.
Could you say that again?
First Tuesday of the month at 11? So that would be April 4th. We could do Wednesday, Nicole reminded me that we're having all committee meetings from council the same day, which are the first Tuesday. Public safety is at 10. It usually runs longer than an hour. So if there's no issue with you all, I would like to propose that we move it to the first Wednesday of the month at 11,
Okay, that's fine with me.
which would be April 5th.
How does,
I will not
Any-
be there that week, but you can proceed with that.
And I
Okay.
will not either. I will not be the entire month of April. I'm going to be out of town.
As it turns out, I'm traveling on April 4th, so that's 3 of us.
okay.
We
how
can
about-
meet. We can meet in May because you're not going to get any new applications for your consideration in May. We should be pretty along with the budget, and you can make the final decision on the budget and the final decision on this application. By then, we should have the
Okay,
information requested, so we can just plan on having a meeting
May
in May.
10th?
May 10th
Okay,
at 11 a.m.
That's the Wednesday.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
All right. Thank
Okay.
you all.
motion to adjourn,
So moved.
Second.
second. All in favor?
Aye.